Let us unpack a deep thought. I will warn you, though, this might unsettle you. You are not special. In fact, no one is special. Because if you are special, why isn't your neighbor special? And if everyone is special, doesn't that mean then that nobody is special? We live in a world that urges us to stand out, to be known, to be admired, to get likes and followers on social media, to post everything you do, your food, your travels, and everything in between. Imagine the idea of traveling without posting anything. Imagine resisting that urge. But why do we feel the automatic need to do this? To most people today, that idea is an impossible thought, an impulse that cannot be controlled. But Stoicism challenges us to ask, to what end? What is the value of being noticed if your character remains undeveloped? What is the point of being seen if what they see is hollow? The fact is, most people don't even care about where you are or what you do. They may look at your post or story, and they will forget it completely the next minute. We must shed this illusion that we are meant to be something grand, something celebrated, something noticed. This obsession with recognition has become the disease of the modern soul. It pushes people to perform rather than to live, to accumulate instead of to reflect, to gain followers rather than virtues. What is truly special is not your curated identity or inflated story. What is truly special is the fact that you exist, that you breathe, that you have this one chance to experience life and live with reason. Life itself is the miracle, not the noise we wrap around it. To believe that you are not special is not to give in to despair. It is to be free of the burden of exceptionalism. It is to let go of the frantic search to prove something. Imagine the weight lifted when you no longer need to chase admiration, when you can just live with honesty, with integrity, with focus. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, ruler of an empire, general of legions, father, philosopher, warrior, wrote in his journal not of his greatness, but of his insignificance. He reminded himself, and us through time, that he would soon be dust, forgotten by time, his name mispronounced, his deeds irrelevant. This was not nihilism, it was humility, it was clarity, and it was power, because in recognizing the smallness of the self, we come closer to understanding the vastness of what truly matters. When we accept we are not special, we become open to real growth. We become teachable. We become students of life, of nature, of reason. The Stoics did not strive to be admired. They strived to be just, brave, wise, and temperate. They did not preach their virtues. They practiced them in silence. We begin this journey not with self-congratulation, but with surrender. Not with the belief that we are above the crowd, but that we are a part of it, equal, mortal, imperfect, and because of that, capable of becoming truly wise. We enter not with titles or superiority, but with the willingness to face truth, with minds eager to learn and unlearn what we thought we knew, with hearts set on discovering a deeper way to live. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Importance. From childhood, many of us are told a lie dressed as encouragement. You are special, you are unique, you are destined for greatness. And while it can be a tool to build self-esteem, over time it becomes a poison. Because when reality does not match the inflated sense of self, suffering is born. This kind of message may fill us with a sense of purpose when we are young, but it plants seeds of entitlement that grow into disillusionment. The gap between expectation and reality stretches wider, and we start to fall into it. The Stoics believed that what troubles us is not events themselves, but our judgments about those events. The same applies to ourselves. We suffer not because we are insignificant, but because we think we shouldn't be. We imagine we are owed something by the world, and when the world does not bow to us, we feel wronged. Our suffering intensifies not due to the absence of recognition, but because we've come to believe that we deserve to be seen, applauded, elevated above others. Epictetus taught that we should remember we are actors in a play written by someone else. We do not get to choose our roles, only how we perform them. The delusion of being special is the tantrum of an actor demanding to play the lead role in every scene. Yet the greatness of a play is not always in its lead, but in the harmony of its cast. When you stop insisting on being the centerpiece, you begin to master the role you were given. That is where grace begins, in the quiet acceptance of your place and the full-hearted effort you give in spite of it. This is the core danger. The illusion of importance leads us to feel superior, to seek praise, to chase validation, and to crumble when none comes. It keeps us trapped in the theater of ego, where we play to an audience that isn't even watching. We dress our lives in costume, rehearse lines we think will impress, and measure our worth in reviews rather than integrity. The tragedy is not that no one notices, it's that we forget how to live without their attention. To shed this illusion is to be free, to do what is right not for applause, but because it is right, to pursue excellence not for identity, but because virtue is its own reward. The real work begins when you no longer need a stage, when the silent acts of discipline, honesty, and persistence become enough. That is when life becomes real again, not a performance but a practice, not a pursuit of being someone, but the cultivation of becoming something good. Chapter 2. You are dust and breath. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Soon you will have forgotten all things. Soon all things will have forgotten you." These are not words to depress us. They are words to liberate us, to remind us that we are dust and breath, fragile, fleeting, and because of that, infinitely precious. What gives life its value is not its permanence, but its impermanence. That it can be taken away at any moment is exactly what makes it sacred. The shortness of life is not a curse but a call to clarity. When you strip away the belief in your specialness, you are left with something much more real, your humanity. To think you are special is to believe the world revolves around your story, but to see yourself as part of nature, just one leaf among many, is to finally understand your place. And in that, you find peace. You begin to understand that nature is vast, and you are a thread in its tapestry, not the center, not the masterpiece, but a meaningful part of the whole. This isn't about diminishing yourself. It's about seeing clearly. There is power in aligning yourself with the truth rather than your ego's projection. The Stoics walked through life with death on their shoulders. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. This was not grim, it was grounding. If we remembered our mortality daily, we would not chase fame. We would not obsess over what others think. We would not cry over being overlooked. We would turn our focus to what is eternal, not in duration, but in value, wisdom, virtue, justice, courage, temperance. These are things death cannot steal. These are things beyond applause or recognition. You are not here to be remembered. You are here to remember what matters, to live justly, even when no one is watching, to act courageously, especially when fear tempts you to retreat, to speak truthfully, not because it earns applause, but because it honors your soul, to think clearly, without clouding your mind with fantasies of status or fantasies of legacy. What matters is not the story told about you, but the story you are telling yourself through your actions. Your name may fade, but the impact of your integrity can ripple through lives you never meet. A kind word, a steady hand, a life lived with moral purpose. These things pass on in unseen ways. The meaning of your life does not lie in the echo of your name, but in the depth of your example. That's the paradox. When you stop trying to be memorable, you often end up leaving the deepest impression, not because of your words, but because of your way. A tree does not compete to be the tallest. It simply grows toward the light. A river does not worry if it is noticed. It simply carves the land day by day. You are here not to be grand, but to be honest, to be useful in your time, to be alive with full presence, to rise in the morning not seeking admiration, but aiming to live rightly, to work with care, to speak with sincerity, to give with no expectation, to close your eyes each night not wondering how many saw you, but whether you stayed true to your principles, whether you grew even a little, whether you moved through the day in harmony with reason. The Stoic path is not one of shining under a spotlight, but of walking a quiet, steady path where peace is found not in being seen, but in being centered. It is about tuning out the noise of applause and tuning in to the stillness of principle. It is the commitment to a kind of inner architecture, building your character with bricks of discipline, patience, and truth. You learn to measure the quality of your days not by visibility, but by integrity. Not by how many watched, but by how well you lived. When you live by timeless values instead of fleeting attention, your energy shifts from performing to becoming. You stop chasing temporary highs and start investing in permanent roots. These roots do not need sunlight from others. They grow in the soil of your own effort. To be centered is to be untouchable by the chaos of the world, not because you escape it, but because you carry order within you. Becoming someone who, regardless of whether they are known or unknown, lives a life worthy of respect is the highest form of power. It's not loud, it's not decorated. It is the kind of respect that rises from your presence, your steadiness, your calm in storms. A respect not demanded from others, but earned quietly within yourself, one honest act at a time. The Stoics remind us that our true audience is our own conscience, that the applause of the crowd is meaningless if you fail to win the approval of your own soul. And when that happens, something extraordinary arises from the ordinary. You become a force for good, not because the world sees you, but because you see the world rightly. You become part of the harmony of things, not disrupting, not flaunting, just participating with awareness. The greatness lies not in grand gestures, but in small consistencies carried with honor. You are not trying to be remembered. You are trying to live in such a way that even if memory fails, meaning does not. Chapter 3. The Weight of Ego. Ego is the enemy. That is not just a catchy phrase. It is the root of much human suffering. It is the voice that tells you you're more than others, the hand that pulls you into comparison, the fire that demands to be fed with recognition. The moment you let ego guide your choices, you begin to lose clarity. Your actions become reactive. Your peace becomes conditional. When you believe you are special, your ego swells. You expect the world to see your value. You expect acknowledgement to arrive simply because of who you are, not what you do. But when it doesn't, when the world continues moving without pausing for your arrival, you are crushed. You begin to resent the very world you hoped would celebrate you. The Stoics saw this cycle clearly. They practiced detachment not from life, but from the illusions that cloud life. Ego is one such illusion. It is not substance, but shadow. It promises power, but delivers weakness. Seneca warned that he who envies the applause of others is a slave, because applause is fickle, it fades. And when your worth is tied to being noticed, your soul becomes unanchored. You drift wherever praise pulls you and live at the mercy of opinion. You cannot serve virtue while chasing validation. The two are incompatible. A soul that needs constant attention will never know rest. A person governed by ego will always feel slighted, always compare, always compete. Ego demands attention. It craves recognition. It whispers that you are above others, that your pain is deeper, your triumphs greater. It feeds off comparison, thrives on superiority, and survives through delusion. Ego says, you deserve more, even when you've done nothing. It says, you are better, without requiring proof. But the truth, we all bleed the same. We all suffer disappointments, bear heartbreaks, and wrestle with uncertainty. We all struggle, we all return to the earth. The dirt makes no distinction between the proud and the humble. The final bed is the same for emperors and laborers alike. To recognize this is to strip ego of its fuel. To look death in the eye is to understand how ridiculous our vanity really is. What makes us human is not our specialness, but our shared fragility, our shared striving, our shared impermanence. That is where our strength lies, in knowing that we are all walking the same road of imperfection and yet choosing to walk it with grace. To kill ego is not to shrink. It is to become solid, steady, humble. It means no longer being tossed about by others' opinions or addicted to approval. It means becoming quiet inside, a place of stillness where external noise cannot penetrate. It is to become unshakable in your purpose and undistracted by noise. A mind that no longer needs validation becomes a fortress, calm in a storm, untroubled by shadows. It becomes a still lake rather than a crashing sea. It becomes a source of clarity, not confusion. Imagine being able to act freely, not to be admired, but because it's right. Imagine making choices not based on appearances, but rooted in your deepest principles. Imagine living a day where your sense of purpose isn't determined by likes, compliments, or promotions, but by how aligned you were with truth. Imagine doing what is difficult, not because of recognition, but because it brings you closer to your highest self. Imagine being immune to both insult and praise, because your inner compass is stronger than the winds of external opinion. That is the fruit of ego's death. Not indifference, but liberation. Not apathy, but calm conviction. You become whole, not through addition, but subtraction. Not through achievement, but through alignment. So train yourself to do things quietly. Let your good deeds go unpublished, not to be invisible, but to be unburdened by the need for acknowledgement. Let your progress go unseen, not because it is small, but because its value lies in the transformation it brings you, not in the eyes it draws. Let your strength be silent, not because it is weak, but because it is secure. Let your intentions be clean, untainted by vanity or reward. Let your efforts flow from the well of principle, not from the thirst for praise. Let your actions speak with no trumpet before them, but with the unwavering language of consistency and virtue. There is a nobility in the quiet path, a strength in restraint, a wisdom in humility. Do not seek to be known, seek to be aligned. Do not seek followers, seek integrity. Seek truth even when it cuts. Seek usefulness even when it's thankless. Seek presence even when distraction is easier. And in doing so, you become your own standard, not someone else's reflection. The strongest souls do not scream. They endure, they persist, they show up again and again, not to be applauded but to uphold what matters. They commit to a quiet excellence. They cultivate themselves in secret gardens, pruning vice and nurturing virtue when no one is watching. They build their character where no one is watching, and that is precisely why it is solid. They practice virtue when it costs them comfort. They hold the line when no one is around to applaud or reward them. They rise not with fanfare, but with intention. They carry an inner code, etched not by society, but by reflection, because they know that real power is not given, it is grown. It is grown in the hard soil of patience, watered by solitude, and rooted in unwavering resolve. It is cultivated in silence, shaped by restraint, and forged in stillness. It does not parade, it perseveres. It is confirmed in solitude, where the world does not distract, and the truth becomes loud enough to hear. It emerges when no one claps, when no one cheers, and yet the work is done with care. And when tested by adversity, it does not shatter. It stands, it holds, it endures without needing an audience. It walks forward, quietly, steadily, freely. Chapter 4. The Liberation of the Ordinary. It is a modern tragedy that we think ordinary means worthless, that the daily, the simple, the consistent is somehow beneath us. We have grown addicted to spectacle, conditioned to believe that meaning must be accompanied by attention, that a moment must be captured to be real. But the deepest truths do not clamor for recognition. They reside in the mundane, in the habitual, in the overlooked. The Stoics would disagree with this modern disdain. They believed that the ordinary is where life actually happens. The moment you wash a dish, the moment you help a neighbor, the moment you sit in silence and reflect. These are sacred acts when done with attention. Life does not begin when something grand occurs. It begins right now, in the act of showing up with purpose. These small moments, multiplied over time, shape the texture of your soul. They are where character is molded. They are not detours from meaning. They are the path itself. The soul is not carved by miracles, but by repetition. And when attention is brought to the present, even the smallest task becomes a sacred ritual. To be ordinary is not to be small. It is to be free of the burden of performance. It is to remove the mask and let yourself simply exist without a script. It is to engage life not as a show, but as a sacred duty. When you are no longer trying to impress, you are free to serve, free to think, free to be. You find clarity not in noise, but in stillness. You discover strength not in ambition, but in consistency. And from that place of grounded humility, you can meet each task, no matter how minor, with reverence. The man who sweeps the floor with care is no less noble than the one who governs with honesty. The woman who listens fully is no less wise than the one who lectures broadly. The virtue lies in how you live, not what title you carry. Think of the most powerful people in history, the ones we remember. Many of them never saw themselves as special. They saw themselves as duty-bound, not icons, not heroes, not performers, but vessels of principle, as those committed to truth, to justice, to the common good. That is what made them powerful, not their elevation, but their refusal to be corrupted by it. They embraced the mundane, mastered the basics, and practiced virtue in repetition. They found greatness not in noise, but in their steadiness. They knew that a life lived well in silence is greater than a life lived loudly in confusion. Do not be ashamed of the ordinary. Embrace it. Hold it with both hands. Let it become the rhythm of your life. Excellence is not found in grand gestures, but in repeated effort. Not in explosive breakthroughs, but in sustained commitment. Not in applause, but in presence. The Stoics taught that a virtuous life is a simple life, a focused life, a deliberate one where intention precedes action, and action is rooted in principle, not performance. One where success is defined not by admiration, but by authenticity. You will find, if you pay close attention, that your days become your legacy, and your quiet choices, your truest testament. So go on, do the dishes, write your journal, show up on time, tell the truth. Live with integrity when no one is watching. Fold your laundry with care. Speak with kindness, even when tired. Breathe deeply in traffic. Give thanks while walking. Apologize without defensiveness. Revisit your values often. That is the life of a philosopher, not a life of fanfare, but of foundation. Not a life of glamour, but of grit. That is the path to peace. That is the power of the ordinary, reclaimed. The quiet life is not lesser, it is lighter, it is real. And in a world built on performance, living it fully might just be the most radical thing you can do. Chapter 5. The Equality of Mortality. Death is the great equalizer. It does not care for status, wealth, followers, or fame. It visits kings and beggars alike. It brings silence to the voices of the powerful and the powerless without distinction. And in its presence, all claims of being special collapse. The illusions of prestige and permanence dissolve. Every achievement, every award, every title becomes dust. No matter how high you rise in the eyes of the world, death will bring you level with everyone else. This is why the Stoics meditated on death often. It stripped away false pride. It made every day precious. It reminded them that to be alive is the gift, not to be celebrated, but to be used wisely. Death was not a subject to avoid, but a mirror to hold up to one's soul. It was the ultimate teacher of proportion, guiding them back to what mattered. When we remember death, we remember to live with urgency and intention. We stop pretending that we have unlimited time to become who we were meant to be. We see clearly that wasting a day is not harmless. It is a permanent loss. Time is not merely passing. It is vanishing, dissolving, disintegrating beneath our feet. Each hour unused is an hour we will never retrieve. Marcus Aurelius said, "Consider how swiftly all things are dissolved into nothingness." In those words is the truth of every monument toppled, every memory faded, every name eventually forgotten. Empires once feared are now lines in books. Men who were once called great are now mispronounced trivia. But in that dissolution is also a strange kind of peace. If everything fades, then what remains meaningful is how we chose to live while we had the chance. And this liberates us. It frees us from the burden of legacy and redirects us to the gift of the present. When you accept your mortality, you stop wasting time on comparison. You stop needing to win arguments, to impress strangers, to prove your worth. You stop trying to earn your existence. You understand that competition is often a mask for insecurity, a symptom of someone who has forgotten they were already enough. You recognize that most of what we chase is noise, titles, likes, applause, validation. But what use is applause when you're gone? What will remain of those numbers once you're no longer counting? You begin to value time more than approval and purpose more than popularity. You trade striving for clarity. You choose meaning over visibility, presence over pretense, depth over decoration. You already have worth because you are alive, because you are conscious, because you are capable of reflection and choice and virtue. That is the highest dignity, not the perception of others, but the fact of your being. The power of existence does not require external proof. It only asks that you live it well, and that is no small task. Let this truth sit with you. You will die, and so will I. That is not something to fear. That is something to guide you. Death is not the enemy. It is the reminder. The reminder that all you have is this day, this moment, the breath in your lungs and the thought in your mind. It is the silent companion to every decision, urging us toward depth instead of distraction. It is the voice in the background saying, "Begin now. Use what you have. Make it count." It calls you not to despair, but to clarity, to courage, to honesty. It beckons you to strip away all that is performative and lean into all that is purposeful. It urges us to live as if each moment is a thread in a short tapestry, one that weaves either chaos or harmony with each choice we make, to waste none of it on pretense, on bitterness, on vanity. Let death clarify your values. Let it reorder your priorities. Let it sharpen your perception of what matters. Let it slow you down so you can speed up what counts. It teaches you that every petty grudge, every shallow craving, every self-centered distraction is a theft from your only life, a thief in the night robbing you of presence. The time you waste envying others is time you could have spent strengthening yourself. The moments you give away to mindless scrolling are moments that could have become memories. If you lived with death beside you, how much clearer your vision would be, how much gentler your touch, how much purer your motives. Would you still argue online? Would you still chase things that never filled you? Would you still wear masks to be liked by those who barely know you? Or would you return to what matters, being whole, being kind, being real? Live today as if your name will be forgotten, as if no statue will be built, as if no history book will carry your story, and yet as if your soul still mattered, as if your character was the only monument that needed building. Live as if your reward is not recognition, but wisdom itself, as if the good you do will not be remembered, but it will matter, as if the people you help will never know your name, but will carry your kindness into someone else's life. Let them pass it on. Let your goodness move silently, like a current beneath the surface, like a seed carried by the wind, not knowing where it lands, but certain that it plants something good. Because that is what the Stoics knew. The only legacy that matters is how you lived, not who noticed. They believed that the moral fabric of the universe is strengthened by quiet virtue, not loud victories. That strength is not measured by noise, but by endurance. That meaning comes not from being admired, but from being aligned. And if you can live with that awareness, truly live, then you have already stepped into a kind of immortality, not of memory, but of meaning, not of being seen, but of being true, not of being praised, but of being whole. You become a presence in the world that lingers without needing to be noticed, a light that shines because it must, not because it seeks to be seen. Chapter 6. The Trap of Comparison. It is easy to feel lost in a world that constantly tells you to look outward. From the moment you wake, your phone bombards you with images of other people's achievements. Social media has turned life into a highlight reel, making every quiet moment in your day feel like a failure. This is the modern disease, to compare endlessly and in doing so, to forget the beauty of simply being. The Stoics warned against comparison, not because they feared ambition, but because they cherished focus. When you spend your life measuring it against others, you stop experiencing it. You become a spectator of your own journey. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why? Because to improve is to focus inward. To grow is to be misunderstood by those who are busy projecting images rather than cultivating depth. Comparison corrupts the soul. It blinds us to what is good, steady, and enduring within us. The person who chases another's path never completes their own. The Stoics taught that we should measure ourselves only by one standard. Am I living according to nature and reason? That is, am I fulfilling my potential, grounded in wisdom and virtue? There is no peace in chasing what someone else was meant to do. Peace comes when you reclaim your path, when you stop looking side to side and begin to walk forward, not faster, not louder, but with greater sincerity. You are not here to be more than anyone else. You are here to be the best version of what you were designed to become. Let others post. Let them perform. Let them climb ladders that mean nothing to your soul. Let them chase titles, applause, and curated perfection. Your role is not to outshine. It is to be authentic, to be deeply rooted in who you are, not who you are seen to be. The sun does not compete with the moon. It rises and sets in its own rhythm, unwavering and sure. The oak does not envy the pine. It grows at its own pace, weathering storms with the strength of stillness. The river does not compare itself to the ocean. It flows in its own way, nourishing the land it touches. You were not born to compare. You were born to live, to feel fully, to walk your own path. to be free from the burden of performance. Life is not a contest, but a canvas, and your task is not to imitate someone else's strokes, but to paint with the colors only you possess. Let that be enough. Let that be everything. Chapter 7. The Discipline of Self-Control. Self-control is not a restriction, it is a superpower. The Stoics held it as one of the cardinal virtues because they knew that without it, wisdom crumbles and courage becomes reckless. Self-control is the gatekeeper of the soul. It determines whether you respond with clarity or react with chaos. In a world that says, if you feel it, act on it, the Stoic says, if you feel it, examine it. To act on every impulse is not freedom, it is slavery. To be ruled by anger, envy, lust, or fear is to forfeit your sovereignty. True power is the ability to pause, to breathe, to choose. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the core of Stoic discipline, mastering the space between stimulus and response. That space, however small, is where your life is shaped. Self-control is not about repression, it's about redirection. It's not that you ignore your emotions, but that you do not allow them to steer the ship. You acknowledge them, thank them for arriving, and then return to reason. You observe the rise of anger, the swell of envy, the tremble of fear, and rather than reacting blindly, you step back. You give yourself the gift of space, of stillness. This is the inner pause where transformation begins. The Stoics trained daily to resist excess, not out of moral superiority, but because excess erodes freedom. They understood that indulgence often disguises itself as liberty, when in truth it binds the soul to dependency. Self-control is an act of strength, not suppression. It is the process of drawing boundaries with wisdom rather than impulse. It is the clarity to know when to engage and when to let go. It is the strength to listen more than you speak, to choose simplicity over extravagance, and to walk away from what doesn't serve your growth. It does not kill joy, it deepens it. Because a person who governs their desires experiences joy not as escape, but as presence. Presence is the reward for restraint. When you are not dragged by your wants, you walk in peace. The one who rules themselves moves through life calmly, not constantly reacting to every trigger or temptation. Their yes is thoughtful, their no is rooted. Practice saying no, not out of guilt but out of principle. No to distractions that dilute your focus. No to temptations that pull you from your path. No to false urgency and emotional bait. No to the approval that costs you your peace. Each no is a yes to something deeper, your clarity, your integrity, your peace. Each refusal is a return to yourself. Resist the urge to speak when silence is stronger. Practice being still when you want to rush. Step back when your instincts beg you to react. Learn to stand at the edge of your impulses without falling into them. Choose to delay gratification, not to suffer, but to sharpen your will, to turn discomfort into discipline. Let the delay teach you patience. Let hunger for ease become hunger for excellence. Delay becomes a teacher, a mentor, a companion on your path. It shows you that what is difficult today strengthens you tomorrow. It turns moments of restraint into milestones of growth. Every time you pause, you build endurance. Every time you wait, you build resilience. And when you stumble, do not shame yourself. Do not spiral into judgment or self-loathing. Pause, reflect, take ownership with gentleness, and then step forward again. That is the Stoic rhythm. Fall, rise, repeat. To stumble is human, but to rise with renewed clarity is what strengthens your character. Each slip is not a failure, but a forge. A forge where your ideals are tested, your patience is expanded, and your resilience is forged in real time. a forge where your character is refined, hammered, and strengthened, not through comfort, but through adversity. These missteps are not detours from the path. They are the path, a necessary part of the process. They reveal what still needs work, what still stirs your emotion, what still challenges your virtue, where each misstep becomes part of your wisdom, not a weight of shame. Wisdom is born in the ashes of mistakes. Shame paralyzes, reflection empowers. The Stoic life is not about perfection. It is about progress rooted in intention. It is about choosing again and again to walk the noble path, even when you've wandered off course. It is the courage to confront your flaws and the humility to keep going despite them. It is a life of gentle discipline, of self-respect over self-hate, of constructive struggle over passive decay. It is not the absence of flaws, but the courage to confront them and the grace to rebuild after them. Self-control is the slow, steady shaping of a self you can trust, a self that has been tested by storms and still stands, a self that can carry you through temptation, distraction, criticism, and praise without losing the core of who you are, a self that becomes dependable, a self that becomes a refuge when the world is chaotic, a self that becomes a friend when solitude is heavy, a self that no longer needs escape because peace has been cultivated from within. In mastering yourself, you free yourself, free from addiction to opinion, free from impulse, free from regret, and in freeing yourself, you finally begin to live, not just exist. You begin to act from truth rather than fear, from wisdom rather than want, from stillness rather than reaction. And that, the Stoics knew, is the foundation of real power. Quiet, unshakable, deeply earned power. Chapter 8. Freedom through detachment. To want nothing from others is to be free. That is the Stoic path. It is not isolation, it is sovereignty. You do not own yourself until you release your need for attention, approval, and validation. Every time you bend your truth to please someone else, you sell a part of your soul. Each compromise in the name of acceptance chips away at your authenticity. Every time you seek praise, you give power to the praiser. You outsource your worth to opinions that shift with the wind. The Stoics understood that true dignity comes when your well-being is no longer held hostage by others' opinions. Dignity is forged in the quiet conviction that who you are is not dependent on external applause, but on internal alignment. Seneca wrote, "What progress, you ask, have I made? I have begun to be a friend to myself. That is the threshold of freedom. It is the starting point of true self-mastery, the moment when you stop chasing others' approval and start standing beside yourself with loyalty. When you no longer betray yourself to be accepted. When you can sit alone and not be lonely. When solitude becomes nourishment, not emptiness. When your own thoughts become company instead of punishment. When you can act with full conviction, even if no one applauds. This is the kind of confidence that doesn't shout, but stands, calm, rooted, and self-sufficient. It is the rare calm of someone who no longer negotiates their values to fit into spaces not meant for them. To be a friend to yourself is to trust your own judgment more than public opinion. It is to choose your inner peace over the fleeting approval of the crowd. And it is a lifelong relationship, one that deepens through daily choices, small acts of integrity, and the refusal to abandon yourself, even when it would be easier to do so. Detach from the need to be liked. Detach from the stories others tell about you. Detach from the belief that your value lies in your visibility. Detach from the compulsive need to be validated in order to feel alive. Let go of the urge to explain, to defend, to be understood by those who don't even understand themselves. Let their misunderstanding pass through you like wind passing through tall grass, unbothered, untouched. You are not a product. You are a presence. You are not your curated image. You are your quiet decisions. You are the silent commitments you make to yourself and keep when no one else is watching. You are the integrity you maintain even when no praise follows. And that presence is powerful when it is whole, when it stands alone without apology, when it walks into rooms not seeking to be noticed, but to remain aligned. It doesn't seek attention because it has already found intention. It doesn't shift to gain approval because it is already rooted in something deeper than praise. You no longer feel the need to audition for love, for acceptance, for value. You simply are, and that is enough. When you are at peace with yourself, no rejection can destabilize you. No gossip can diminish your truth. No crowd can silence your voice. You have already accepted the one person who matters most, you. You are home within yourself. This is the paradox of detachment. The less you need, the more you have. The less you grasp, the more you receive. The more you let go, the lighter you become. You lose the weight of expectation and inherit the strength of clarity. The more you release, the more whole you feel, because nothing outside of you can complete what was never missing to begin with. The less you chase, the more you can create, because your energy is no longer being burned on things that cannot nourish you. The less you demand, the more you enjoy, because contentment is found not in having more, but in needing less. The more you are present, the more you can build from what is real, not illusion, not fantasy, but substance. Detachment is not rejection of life, but a deeper embrace of it. You stop clinging, and you begin to see. You stop performing, and you begin to live. Let others chase reputation. You chase character. Let others build personas. You build truth. Let others trade authenticity for popularity. You trade noise for stillness. Let others seek influence. You seek impact. Let others compete. You compose. You choose depth over display, because you understand that roots matter more than spotlight. You choose consistency over clout, because excellence is not what you show, it's what you repeat. You choose virtue over validation, because your conscience is a higher judge than the crowd. You choose courage over comfort, because growth demands discomfort. You choose restraint over reaction, because mastery requires silence more often than it requires speech. Let them wear masks, you walk in clarity. Let them play roles, you live in alignment. Let them perform for applause, you act from conscience. Let them race, you remain. Let them gather eyes, you gather peace. You don't aim to impress, you aim to be honest. You don't hustle to be visible, you strive to be useful. That is the quiet power of one who needs nothing. And in needing nothing, you possess everything that truly matters. Not things that rust or fade, but things that build an unshakable life. Clarity, focus, stillness, peace. You walk lighter, breathe deeper, and love cleaner. Not because you have everything, but because nothing owns you. No trend sways your mind. No crowd dictates your steps. You belong to yourself. You are loyal to your truth. You move by principle, not pressure. By design, not demand. By value, not volume. That is the Stoic's freedom. That is the soul's liberation. That is where power lives, not in being seen, but in being solid. Not in being admired, but in being anchored. Not in rising above others, but in rising within. That is who you are when you no longer seek to be anyone else. That is the kind of person who changes the world, not through noise, but through stillness. Chapter 9. The Power of Stillness. Stillness is not weakness. It is not inactivity. It is not absence. It is presence intensified. In a world that glorifies urgency, performance, and noise, stillness is a rebellion. a refusal to be dragged by the chaos of the moment, a declaration that your inner world is yours to protect. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." That is the sanctuary of the Stoic, not an escape from the world, but a posture within it. Stillness is not stepping away from life, it's stepping fully into it with clarity. It is choosing to respond instead of react, to observe instead of absorb, to pause before speaking, and to breathe before deciding. Stillness is where you meet your thoughts before they become actions. It is where emotion is examined, not obeyed. It is where the fog clears and the truth emerges. It is the sacred pause between stimulus and response. It is the moment when clarity overpowers confusion. The frantic man burns out, the still man endures. The reactive man is ruled by circumstances. The still man rules himself. Stillness is not silence. It is strength under control. It is thunder made quiet, fire made focused. It is not passive. It is intensely active. It holds the line while the storm rages. It stands when everything else demands you run. To cultivate stillness is to take your mind back from the world, to reclaim your attention from every headline, every opinion, every demand on your nervous system, to shield your peace from the 1,000 invisible pulls that beg for your urgency, to stop being yanked in every direction by every distraction, and instead become a still point in a turning world. Stillness is not a withdrawal from life. It is a deeper entry into it. It is not absence from responsibility, but clarity within it. It allows you to hear beyond noise. It allows you to act with precision, not panic. It invites you to live more slowly, and in doing so, more fully. Stillness lets you listen, not just to others, but to yourself, to the whisper of your values, to the voice of your reason, to the calling of your purpose. It is where you rehearse virtue, where you strip away everything false and face yourself honestly, where you decide who you will be long before the world asks it of you. It is a rehearsal space for wisdom. It is the internal ground you build on so that when the world shakes, you remain. The Stoic who trains in stillness walks into any room with calm. They do not rush to fill silence. They do not seek to dominate or convince. They lead with presence. Their presence is deliberate, not performative. It is grounded, not reactive. They understand that true influence is not volume, but depth. They know that influence does not come from force, but from consistency. Their authority doesn't require declarations. It is felt in the quiet certainty with which they move. They are not shaken by noise, not distracted by performance, not seduced by validation. They have trained their nervous system to stay quiet, even when provoked. They do not respond to every offense. They do not echo every emotion. Their composure is the fruit of many battles fought and won in silence. Their power is not in what they say, but in what they no longer need to say. They are beyond the need to prove. Their restraint speaks louder than any proclamation. It is not a lack of words. It is the precision of when to speak and when to be still. They do not speak to fill space. They speak to bring clarity. They carry themselves like mountains, unmoved, centered, unwavering. Their eyes see more because they react less. Their stillness is not stillness of inactivity. It is active discipline in motion. It is a stillness that chooses when to move with purpose, not impulse. Stillness is their armor. Restraint is their sword. Focus is their shield. Discipline is their path. They do not chase peace. They are peace. They do not seek control. They embody it. They become a living demonstration that inner mastery is not a performance, but a posture. In their presence, others slow down. In their silence, others listen, because they have made their inner world their highest ground, and from that ground they do not move. They are not waiting for the world to grant them calm. They have become calm. And that, the Stoics knew, is the mark of a truly powerful soul. Chapter 10. The Strength in Insignificance. To be insignificant is not to be worthless. It is to be honest about scale. The Stoics knew that the universe does not revolve around us, and that is where real freedom begins. The stars do not blink because you're having a bad day. The sun does not wait for your success before it rises. You are small, and that is sacred. Because in smallness, you become spacious. You stop needing to prove your existence. You stop demanding that life deliver meaning. You start creating it instead. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often that he would be forgotten, that his bones would be dust, that even his name would be mispronounced, and he was emperor of the Roman Empire. If even the mighty fade, then what are we? We are flickers, temporary, passing through. But that does not mean we are pointless. It means we must live with urgency. We must live with care. When you no longer need to be seen as special, you are finally free to do something meaningful. You stop performing, you stop competing, you begin to live a life of substance instead of spectacle. You begin to cultivate character over credit. You begin to serve, not so the world remembers your name, but so someone else's burden is lifted, someone else's day is lightened. That is significance, not the loud kind, but the lasting kind. Insignificance humbles us. It purifies our motives. It puts things in right proportion. You are not here to be praised. You are here to live wisely, to choose well, to use your limited days in ways that leave behind seeds, not statues. The Stoic does not seek fame. They seek alignment. They seek strength of spirit. They seek peace within the inevitable erosion of time. So let go of the weight of being important. You do not need to be remembered to matter. You only need to matter to this moment, to this choice, to the soul you become when no one is watching. That is your monument, not a legacy in marble, but a life etched in quiet integrity. That is the Stoic strength. That is the final lesson. In being nothing, you find everything.